Hello, hello, hello. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I think I was accidentally just talking to myself for like a good 5 minutes, but if you can't see me, happy Friday. I hope I am actually live. Let me just double check I've done this correctly this time round. Okay, there we go. I'm actually live now. Amazing. I spent the last 5 minutes just like talking to myself. And I was like, why is nobody in chat responding? There's like a productive conversation happening. But I'm actually, actually just hadn't pressed the go live button. But amazing. You see me, you hear me. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope we've all had a lovely week. Another one done, another one done. Hello, hello, hello. I can't believe it. I was literally just talking to myself for like 5 minutes, just there thinking like nobody cared about me in chat. I think Benjamin and Chandler were having a pretty productive conversation. But yeah, we're live, we're here, we're ready to yap, and I'm not being ignored like I thought I was. Yeah, happy Friday, everyone. What was the best part of the week? I was having some technical issues, hence the lateness. But honestly, I was talking to myself for an embarrassingly long time. But yeah, as I was saying to myself, another week down. My cat's got like some hardcore zoomies at the moment, so she's just kind of been pelting it back and forth. So if you see a feline kind of leap into frame, that's what's going on. But in the meantime, here we are. Mr. Cynic, you can watch it after if you want. You can watch it now. Yeah, I also meant to upload that a little bit earlier, but God, I was just a bit of a mess today. Benjamin says I talk to myself on a daily basis. Best company. Oh yeah, I talk to myself all the time. I've actually been meaning to work out. I saw a really neat video the other day. Hang on, let me find it for you. This girl, she worked out like. Hang on, I'll find the video for you. There we go. Where are we? Oop, oop. There we go. Yeah, this video here. She like sat down and like mathematically worked out how much of her time she spends alone, and it came out to 80%. And I really think that if I did this experiment, it would be like 95%. I'm actually quite scared to do this experiment. But yeah, she like literally wrote down how many hours she spends with like family, with friends, every month, and it came out to 80% of her time alone. But yeah, I think the stat would probably be a bit higher for me. I don't know. Do you guys spend that much time alone? I'm kind of in a situation where I work from home and I don't really go out, and it's also like snowy tundra of Canada outside. So I just talk to myself so much, so much. It's the best though. Oh, hi Amira, third in a row. Let's go, let's go. You're on a streak. You're on a streak, baby. Mr. Cynic says I'm never alone enough to talk to myself. Oh my god, do you live with family, a big family, or what's the deal? Chandler says, talking to yourself is actually very good for you. It simply engages more of your different language association areas. Yeah, I think it's great. I like it. I always talk to myself whenever I'm like reading or learning something new. I like try to like explain it as if I was explaining it to someone else. And it really forces me to figure out which bits I understand and which bits I don't. It's a good exercise. It's a good little exercise. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, she's super social and she still spends 80% of her time alone. I was pretty surprised with the maths, but interesting little experiment. But yeah, as I was saying to myself, today's Yap Sesh, once we get round to it, is going to be about wage reform in California. It's interesting little stuff has been happening there. It's mainly in the fast food industry, but I think it can be extrapolated, and there's a lot of interesting learnings and findings in all of that. But we will get to that in due time. In due time. Oh, hey Alexander, nice to see you. You're on a roll as well. I've been seeing you here frequently. It's good. It's good to see familiar names. Yeah, it's very nice to see familiar. I didn't even say hi to Meg as well. I saw you there. Mercy, hi as well. Goosey, nice to see you. SR, I think you're a new name, but yeah, lovely to see you too. Hey, Roger. First time, but happy to be here. Happy to have you here, mate. Happy to have you here. We're going to do a little bit of yapping, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today, which is wage reform. There's some like a really interesting study that was published recently, and I'm basically going to run you through the findings and some of the controversy. Fun stuff. Mr. Cynic says, is Cali walkable? I've spent a total of like 3 days in California in my entire life, and I was in like Anaheim, and that wasn't it wasn't the most walkable. I went for like a walk at night, and yeah, it did not feel great. Yeah, I don't think California is particularly walkable. Maybe like the center of San Francisco might be better. I've heard that's okay, but I don't know if I would ever say it's. Chandler saying it's not. The mainframe as well, first stream. Nice to see you, man. Roger Moreno says Cali's a whole wonderland in and of itself. Massive great surrounded by streets of suburbs. Yeah. Also, like one thing which is really strange to me, I guess this is like an American thing where you have like cities that are just like next to each other. Like you cross one road and you've technically gone from like LA into Anaheim, but there's no like border. There's no real separation. The idea of like cities that are like adjoined to each other is so strange to me. Ah, Fats has such a lovely voice to listen to. Thank you, mate. That's why I talk to myself so much, eh? Chandler says it's just because the cities grew and merged. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, like I feel like in the UK, cities have much more defined borders than. I need to look into it. Yeah, no, it is pretty unique to have like cities that don't have like a gap between them. At least I think it is. Like I feel like every other place has like a city and then like some villages or whatever, and then another city. They're like their own little units. But maybe I'm capping. But yeah, I thought we could yap about a few interesting stories this week. I made some notes. What did I want to talk about? Oh, I don't know if any of you are space fans, but did any of you see the SpaceX situation that's been going on? If you don't follow rocket launchers, basically SpaceX had a test flight yesterday, their 8th one, and Elon Musk has been saying that they're going to go to Mars and all of this. But the rocket launched and an engine failed, and they fully lost communication with it, and it just landed in the ocean somewhere. I'll find you a video. This is crazy. This is the 8th test flight, and they still can't reliably get to space. The footage is insane. Hang on. Yes. Oh my god, it was so bad. So hang on, I'll find the footage for you, and I'll give you some more context after that. SpaceX. Yeah, so this is test flight number 8. There's the clip I'm looking for. Link. There we go. So this is what it looked like from the ground. Can you imagine? So basically, the SpaceX has been doing a bunch of these test flights. They're up to number 8. They described this event as a rapid unscheduled disassembly, because you just can't be honest for some reason to the rocket blew up. But yeah, basically this is test flight number 8, and they've been trying to get to space reliably and successfully for ages now, but they just can't do it. This is the second explosion they've had as well. The last flight ended up like this as well. But basically this time an engine failed while they were midair, and the other engines kept firing. So the rocket just tilted and just spun out of control. It then started to do what you saw on there, and it got so bad. Like like I thought it was just like a funny story, whatever. Like the rocket blew up, but because they did this in the middle of the day over Florida, they had to reroute all of the planes that were in the radius of where the rocket could land, because obviously they don't want like rockets to land on top of a plane. And so like hundreds of flights had to be diverted. This happened last year as well, in like maybe in January or something. This is the second time in like a year or so it's happened where they launch these rockets and they just explode. And like all of these flights have to be diverted. It's quite frustrating, I would think, to like flights will have to turn back and stuff, but I just think the footage is absolutely terrifying. Like I can't imagine being on land and seeing this come down, rain down on you. Insanity. Yeah, let me see if I can find the flight map. SpaceX diversion flight map. And like, yeah, you know, I don't want to be mean to the engineers at SpaceX. They're clearly like straight up geniuses, but they don't seem to have the resources to be able to. I mean, I don't think they're going to go to Mars anytime soon, right? Like, you know, I think it says a lot that Elon Musk has never been on a SpaceX rocket as it's going up in the air. Let's see if I can find the picture. I can't find this. Yeah, you can't really tell. There you go. You can't really tell, like, but you can see the flights being diverted and stuff. But basically, like dozens and dozens of flights had to be diverted because rockets were raining down from space onto them. But it's pretty wild that they're allowed to just do this. Hey, Asmaj, nice to see you. Um, Benjamin says, I heard many of these failed launches could be prevented with proper pre-modeling and testing. Why is Elon not taking his own goddamn hobby seriously? Well, honestly, like, I think the man has kind of forgotten he's got companies because, like, I feel like the engineers at SpaceX are definitely going to be worked to the bone because. Sorry, the cat's going a bit crazy. Because, yeah, I feel like rockets shouldn't be repeatedly blowing up over normal airspace. The previous rocket that exploded had like a fuel leak, and that was what caused it to blow up. And this one had a straight up engine failure. Risk says, don't fly into the US right now. It's wild. Yeah, it's a bit crazy, I would say. You're a brave man if you're flying into the US these days. Like, if the plane can make it into the air, there's a chance it might get downed by a rocket. It's like a Call of Duty kill streak, right? Someone called in the AC 130. Mercy said, I watched a video about the town they do launches from, and the fallout is tragic. OMFG. Oh my god, I don't know much about it. It's was it Cape Canaveral? Was that the site, or was that just where NASA goes from? Yeah, I never thought about what would happen. Yeah, that whole town must depend on rocket launches. It must be pretty annoying. I'm sure he didn't forget how he got that new contract for Starlink. Yeah, exactly right. I heard that he's overseeing like a Verizon contract, trying to get their like communications contract shut down so that SpaceX Starlink can sweep in and take the bucks. Roger Moreno says, it seems like here in the US every day there's an aviation disaster. Yeah, there's been quite a few lately. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but yeah, planes do feel like they're falling out of the sky at the moment. I was always like, I always kind of brushed it off when people were like mega paranoid about flying. I was like, yeah, it's, you know, safer than driving and all of that. But if you're reluctant to fly these days, I'll understand it. Imagine if NASA got all the budget being wasted on SpaceX. Yeah, well, I've heard that NASA might have its budget. Did they say they were gonna halve the NASA budget? What was the NASA budget? Oh, there we go. Ah, yeah, there we go. It said White House may seek. Okay, so it's not confirmed, but they're reportedly plotting to slash the NASA budget by 50%. And I bet you the budget for SpaceX is gonna go up. Yeah, so Doge is gonna. There we go. Let me just get that up. Yeah, the acting NASA chief says Doge is going to review the space agencies as hundreds have chosen to take the federal buyout. But yeah, apparently they're looking to cut the NASA budget by up to 50%. The video, Meshock says, videos, we went to the town Elon took hostage. Ah, I saw that on my feed by a More Perfect Union. I need to watch it. So it says Elon has a chainsaw, needs nothing more. Minterm said NASA built SpaceX back in the day, and this is how they thanked them. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like NASA's been, you know, obviously NASA's a government agency, so they share pretty much everything they do. That's not like military, and it's a shame. It's a shame. But yeah, SpaceX is in a bit of a pickle. To be fair, Tesla's in a bit of a pickle as well. Like the sales are down like practically everywhere for Tesla. There was a new batch of data that came out for Australia as well, where let's see what Yeah, so compared to last year, Tesla sales have plummeted by 72% in Australia from February last year to February this year. They've gone down in Germany, Norway, France. They've gone up in the UK actually because there's a big tax credit that's going to expire soon. But yeah, it's not looking great. It's not looking great. I think Risk says, "Don't worry, he'll subsidize fallen sales with US taxpayer money." Well, he's actually been subsidizing fallen sales in their in their last quarterly report. They mentioned that they'd been able to stem the loss with their Bitcoin holdings because they have like $1 billion in Bitcoin. Literally $1 billion in Bitcoin. They've been able to stem the collapse of the company by, I guess getting Trump to juice Bitcoin on Twitter or on Truth Social. It's a bit mad. It is a bit mad. Mainframe says, I was watching Otarehi. He was talking about Starlink losing contracts in Canada and Europe. Yeah, so in Ontario, just I guess not far from here, they cancelled like a $100 million contract, I think, with Starlink to get internet access into remote areas. And this Mexican billionaire as well, like cancelled all of his communications contracts with Starlink. I'm curious. Also, like all of the insiders at Tesla, like selling their shares. So the Elon Musk's brother has been selling millions of dollars of shares, trying to get out. The board of directors is all selling shares. It's kind of crazy out there. I can't imagine what like the staff at Tesla must feel because do they not need a? I guess do they not get a look in these days? Croissant says Bitcoin reserve to keep Tesla afloat. That's definitely a part of it. Like 100%. The strategic crypto reserve talk. Part of it is 100% to help Tesla. And there's like the guy who's basically running it as well is a huge crypto investor. It's a wild world out here, baby. It's a wild world. But yeah, the SpaceX stuff is crazy, but it's been a welcome distraction from tariff mania this week. Reginald says, what about Carlos Slim? Yeah, so yeah, that's who I was talking about, right? Carlos Slim is like one of the richest guys in Mexico, has cancelled a bunch of Starlink contracts, right? Carlos Slim, Starlink. There we go. Yeah, so he ended his partnership with Starlink, opting for an independent infrastructure development worth $22 billion, which is pretty wild. But I think it's a good thing. Probably a good thing for Mexico for them to get $22 billion instead of Starlink. Chandler says, I luckily convinced my parents to divest everything on Monday. The grandparents, sorry. Props to them. Props to them. I mean, the thing about Tesla is it's treated people well for lots of years now, right? If you put money in it, but the hype is finally starting to unravel. The emperor's clothes. Reginaldo says, Claro is huge here in Brazil. That's just so crazy that one tweet blew it up. Right? I didn't realize, because I don't know much about Carlos Slim. I didn't realize that his operation was like that big and that big of a link. But I guess props to him for putting his money where his mouth is, especially as a billionaire, right? That's props. But yeah, Canada's been taking a pretty hard line. I mean, like, let me show you. So, so if anyone's new in chat, I live in Canada. I live in Montreal, which I guess is a politically active city, if you want to call it that. But I've been seeing like things like this. Let me just show you. Hang on. Let me just show you the stuff I've been seeing. Yeah. I'll just come on that. Okay. Hang on. Bear with me. No, not my Photoshop files. There we go. Yeah, so this is a cafe that's not too far from me. With Chandler, we're not going to accept Quebecois slander here. I've become a Quebecois separatist in my year here, mate. But yeah, this is my local coffee shop. And it's not just that, like there's like graffiti everywhere. It's a bit where else? Hang on. Oh, hey, Iron Fire Horse. Nice to see you again. Yeah, I was just telling chat that this is a local coffee shop of mine. There's like stuff like this all over the city that's just been popping up. Just like graffiti and things like that. People are displeased. I kind of feel like a bit of an imposter as well because I'm not Canadian. I'm kind of British, and we've kind of British. I am British, but we've kind of avoided most of the beef over in the UK, minus the Ukraine stuff. But I feel like a bit of an imposter trying to stand with the Canadians. Yeah. There was also another one. This one I might have to translate for you, but let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, I saw this as well. There we go. Is that, am I going to get the stream banned? Nah. Oh god, let me not zoom in too much, but it's it's just, yeah, I'm not going to translate it, but I feel like you can see from the image the impression that people seem to have towards yeah, I'm not going to translate it. It's just basically just saying that you know what, it's better if I don't translate it. I'll let you decide what you think the text says on this, and I'm probably going to turn it off before YouTube's AI bans the chat for showing a cartoon penis. But yeah, that's just to emphasize that people are not feeling too amicable to the US here. Mercy, I'm going to leave it to the imagination. I feel like some questions are best left unanswered. Chandler says, I heard the UK has just started to follow in Doge's footsteps. Recently, just unilaterally cutting funding for government services. Yeah, that's been kind of an ongoing thing, really, for like kind of 15 plus years. I guess we've had austerity measures, and they kind of want to cut some more stuff, which is quite annoying to see, especially because this government like campaigned on a much more positive kind of message, right, of like trying to cut down student fees and things like that. But two-party system, isn't it, really? So yeah, it's like it's become like a two-party system. Even though it's better than the US, there is some representation from smaller parties, but it's yeah, the two parties in the UK are strikingly similar these days. But yeah, just wanted to share you some of the things I see when I go out on my walks. But yeah, I feel like honestly, there's just so much that happens every day, and I try to keep track of it all, but it's just too much. It's just too much. I think I do a decent job keeping track of it though. But yeah, the tariff situation has been a bit tense here because I guess the tariffs came into force, and the official justification is that there's a drug dealing problem in Canada, and the drugs are flowing into the US from Canada, which like it's just objectively not true. It's something like less than 1% of the fentanyl that flows into the US is from Canada. But the best explanation I've seen as to why like the US government would lie about something like that is because there are really strict rules on the conditions under which the president can like impose tariffs, like unilaterally. So he can only impose tariffs on matters of like national security, basically. And so if there isn't an issue of national security, he can't unilaterally impose tariffs without the Congress getting on board. So that's like the working theory as to why they just lie about Canada just being this like fentanyl haven. But yeah, so they impose the tariffs, right? And then Canada retaliates and they're like, okay, we're also going to impose tariffs. Ontario goes like super, super hard. And they're like, we're going to, I think, put 25% on electricity flowing into the US from like next week or whatever. immediately the US begins to backtrack on the tariffs. So now cars are exempt because I don't know if you know how cars are made, but basically the parts cross the border multiple times. So some work will be done in Canada, then it'll cross into the US, and some work will be done, it'll cross back and forth like 6-7 times. And if you have a 25% tariff, it means that every time it crosses, you're whacking 25% on top of the price. So they immediately backtracked on that. Canada was like hard line, and they said, right, we're not going to backtrack on anything until all of these tariffs are gone. So somehow in like the last 3 days, the US has begun to like lose its upper hand and begin to capitulate. And so it's just a bit of a shit show, to be honest. Ontario's also cancelled the $100 million Starling contract. They've taken all of the American booze out of the shops. The Jack Daniels. There was a great headline, which is by the Jack Daniels owner. I just found it for you, which is this one here. Jack Daniels maker says Canada pulling US alcohol off shelves is worse than tariffs. Absolutely no bias there. But yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because Ontario specifically was the single biggest buyer of whiskey from Tennessee and Kentucky, which is insane. They're like, because in Canada, you might not know this, but in most Canadian provinces, alcohol is like a nationalized business. So the provinces have like a regional monopoly over the sale of spirits. It's a bit different for beers and wines, but over the sale of spirits, you have to go to like a government shop. And so they can, unilaterally cut off the entire market for American alcohol manufacturers, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. Yeah, Comrade Midna says, so BC is going to start adding surcharges for all trucks that go through it to Alaska. So if you're not American, the geography might be a bit muddled for you, but I realize not everyone might know where Alaska is, but there we go, right? Boop, boop, boop. Where are we? There we are. No, wrong browser. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So British Columbia on the left here, over here, they're going to start imposing tariffs on any vehicle that's going from mainland US to Alaska. And that's quite a big deal because you also just can't use boats. Well, you can use boats, but if you ship a boat from America to America, there's some basically obscure laws that make sure that you have to have like a fully American made boat and like something like a 90% American crew, which makes it super expensive to use boats from the US to another spot in the US. So normally they just take trucks through the majority of trade. But yeah, and now they're going to get, everyone in Alaska is going to get screwed if that comes into force, and they're going to have to pay more, it's annoying. It's annoying that the people who get screwed the most by this are just consumers, right? It's always the consumer that seems to bear the brunt of this stuff. Hey-ho. Hopefully it blows over. Comrade Misner says, even Alberta that has private alcohol sales, the distribution is still controlled provincially. I didn't know that. I'm only really familiar with the Quebec system, to be honest, and Ontario. In Quebec, we have the Société d'Alcool de Québec, which is just like a state province-owned business that sells all the spirits and stuff. You can still buy beers from like supermarkets, but spirits and most wines are only available in these government shops, which, to be honest, is something I can get behind. Like I can get behind that. I don't think it's too much of a problem. I think it's fine for like something that is objectively as destructive as alcohol to at least have the revenues go back into the state. I don't mind that. Chandler says, did you know there are actually people who are alive living in the Northwest Territories? Yeah, the Northwest Territories, the territories in general in Canada is just is a foreign land to me. I just feel like it's got to be so empty out there. Like nothing happens in none of it, surely. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll go through. I'm curious what like the far reaches of northern Canada are actually like. How people live out there. Oh, Jeremy says, one of my best friends lives on Kodiak Island and voted for Trump. So, that is sad. The only thing I know about Kodiak Island is that this is very relevant. But years ago, there was a pool organized by Pitbull, the musician, and you would submit a location for him to perform, and the location that got the most votes would have a free show by Pitbull. And Kodiak Island ended up winning the the nominations because of all the Kodak songs, right? And he actually went there. Pitbull actually went to Kodiak Island and did a free show for the people. What a guy! What a guy! Infram says they banned US companies in procurement in Ontario as well. Yeah, they did. They did. Yeah, the premier there, Doug Ford, has taken like a mega hard line. I'm not the biggest fan of him, or I guess I'm not the biggest fan of him when it comes to a lot of things. Like he's really anti-bike lane for some reason. Like he spent like millions of dollars shutting down already existing bike lanes for no reason. But at least on this issue, he's taken a hard stance, and he's seems to be doing things that make sense and not capitulating, which is always good to see. I bet my guy Rob Ponty saw that shoot. Is Rob Ponty, is your mate Rob a Pitbull fan? I don't know who is. I don't know who Pitbull fans are, to be fair. I've never actually met one out in the wilds. Reginald says, I really just wonder how the next Football World Cup is going to be. Oh, that's a very good point. That's a good point. It's coming up, isn't it? Chandler, did you just say you don't know who Pitbull is? Man, you got to educate yourself, man. Pitbull is one of the preeminent philosophers of our time, man. Mr. Worldwide. Okay. But yeah, Chandler, you've definitely heard a Pitbull song, whether or not you know that you have. He's one of those people you can't avoid. He's a how does he compare to Two Chains? I'll tell you what, Two Chains is very Pitbull coded. Two Chains is like the rap version of Pitbull, I think. The two, they must have collabed at some point, right? I don't know if the universe could handle that. Pitbull and Two Chains in the same room. Oh, no, they haven't collabed. Oh my god! But yeah, I don't think the universe is prepared to have Pitbull and Two Chains in the same room together. Dale dale, baby. Sam Harris and Pitbull, exactly right. You got, what is it? It's was it the Four Horsemen of Atheism, right? What are the Four Horsemen? There we go. Yeah, it's Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and Pitbull. Yeah, I reckon Pitbull. Is he a satirical artist or is he just like that? Oh no, there's no satire when it comes to Pitbull. The man wears his heart on his sleeve. I just wish I could play some tracks for you, but let me see. What are the biggest Pitbull bangers? Give me everything. 1.2 billion views. God. Fireball, 378 million. Timber, Pitbull, and Keisha. Oh, yeah, this is taking me back, man. uh, yeah, man, you got some tunes for you to listen to, mate. Uh, Two Chains is great, better than Pitbull in your opinion, but it's a low bar. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I'd have to put Pitbull above it. The man does have banger creation abilities. The man understands the charts like no other. Uh, Pitbull is the same as Limp Bizkit for metal fans. Yeah, I would say that's a good analogy. Yeah, yeah. I would say that's maybe a little bit harsh to Limp Bizkit, but that's a good analogy. There's a sketch parody of Pitbull where he realizes he's a douche. There's the funniest thing ever. I think I've seen it before. Is it a Key and Peele one? Or is it Comedy Central? No, I'm just getting. I searched Pitbull sketch and I'm getting drawings of dogs. uh, Honestly, man, I think the thing about Pitbull is he's just such a remarkable force on his own that I just don't feel like anyone in modern music could even live up to his ability, man. The man gets a crowd moving. The man gets a crowd moving. uh, yeah, Mr. Worldwide is a cornerstone of like late 2000s, early 2010s culture. The man has brought nothing but joy to millions of people. Yeah, I think maybe it was an Arturo Castro. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it is. Yeah. Alternatino with Arturo Castro. Yeah, it is. It'll probably get this copyrighted though, so I don't think I can play it. But yeah, where were we? Boop, 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 boop. But yeah, as I say, I've been kind of addicted to American news at the moment. I just can't get enough of it. It's it's starting to like tickle the part of my brain that I used to like fill with like trashy reality TV. The part of my brain that used to be filled with like Love Island or like Too Hot to Handle. American politics is just taking it. It's just taking it. It's so much more chaotic. It's so much more dramatic. It's incredible. Jeremy Addison says, I have to say this is much more entertaining than I expected when it opened with Tariff Talk. Yeah, no, we have a nice little yap session at the start, and then we get into the topic of whatever we're going to talk about. It's always nice to chat for a bit beforehand. Les Chocolate says, now that you mention it, I can't think of a bad thing about him. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, there's no real valid reason to ever hate on Pitbull. He doesn't pretend his music is high art. He knows it's for the people. He gets the people. He gets the people going, man. Let's check out Prof. Whom is Prof? Dale dale for the whole free world, man. Man, if the US wanted to nominate, a global ambassador for music, I think they could do much worse than Pitbull. Chandler said someone else asked me if Daft Punk's had a better best. Stronger was a cover of Kanye West song. To be fair, I heard the Kanye West song before I heard the Daft Punk version. Sorry to admit it. Prophet's the most underrated artist in hip hop. Okay, Prof, rapper. Yeah, I mean, I can tell from what the vibe is from Google Images. I've never heard of this guy. I think this is going to be an entertaining listen. Mm-hmm. Daft Punk is one of my favorite artists. I cried when they officially ended it. Oh my god. Yeah, I only really ever started listening to Daft Punk in like lockdown. That's when I actually like went through their discography because I realized they'd produced like loads of songs that I liked. Like Starboy by The Weeknd. That's a Daft Punk tune. Obviously Stronger, Daft Punk sample. But yeah, I listened to Random Access Memories all the way through, and I had it on repeat for a good few months. I still go back to it from time to time. They're a vibe. They're a vibe. Jeremy says, dig your whole thing. We'll be back. Oh, nice to see you. Yeah, take a break. Come back whenever you can, man. Prof is a Midwest American hip hop guy. I don't understand anything, but he's close. Benjamin says, best trash TV is WWE and pro wrestling. As a kid, I loved it. So dramatic and theatrical. Oh, mate. I never really watched wrestling as a kid, but I'm now obviously like I don't have the Instagram app on my phone anymore. But when I had the app on my phone, I would get so many WWE reels. It's incredible. It's so entertaining, and it's like athletically, oh my god, it's amazing. I can't believe I used to hate on WWE because it's fake. It's real in the ways that matter. it's so real in the ways that matter. Also, Benjamin, I'm a big MF Doom fan as well. Big MF Doom fan. You just gotta remember all caps when you spell the man name, though. Uh, yeah, Meg. Right, yeah, right. Random Access Memories is so good. Yeah, I do like Daft Punk. I think they just don't appear in my algorithms enough, so I just forget to listen to them. But they're so good, and they're animated. They have like a bunch of animated music videos as well on YouTube, which are really good. Highly recommend. Ren is great as well. Yeah, awesome. Great taste in the chat. Great taste in the chat. I've only listened to a few Ren songs, but he's one of those musicians. He's really got range. He's really got range. And he's got like quite a heartfelt story. Like he was chronically sick, I think, for years. And he's just getting through it now, which is, yeah, props to the guy. It's nice to see like an older musician pop off later on and like have this entire story and the skill to back it up. It's great. Yeah, no, he's great. He's got like so much range as well. Like all of his songs sound so different, and yet they all hit in their own way. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Reginaldo says, back in my childhood, a local TV used to stream Knights of the Zodiac, Dragon Ball, and then WWE in sequence. Oh my god, that's a trio. Um, yeah, I found out recently. Right, you said you were. Did you say you were Brazilian? Because like anime is like weirdly super popular in Latin America, right? Dragon Ball specifically. I'm not entirely sure why, but I've heard Dragon Ball is like crazy popular across Latin America and South America in general. Great taste, great taste. I used to watch so much anime as a kid because we I think I mentioned this like last week or the week before, but when I was a kid, my mum like she knew a guy. I don't know where she met this guy, this old Turkish dude. He lived in the area and he would like install pirate satellite dishes outside your like apartment or house. And he installed like a pirate satellite dish outside our apartment that we were living in, and we could get like French TV on it. And French TV shows so much anime, or at least it did when I was a kid. So I used to watch like, oh yeah, my family's francophone. So yeah, I used to watch so much anime. Knights of the Zodiac, Dragon Ball, Naruto Shippuden, all the classics, man. It was amazing. Reginaldo, Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh, Knights of the Zodiac, and Naruto's Youth Fever. My god, they don't make him like that anymore. When I actually think about it, like Naruto had like 300 episodes of just filler content that contributed nothing to the story. But as a kid, it just hits so good. Mercy says, shout out Tizo, shock learning is there. Yeah, same with Tizo as well. Yeah, I think he deliberately tries to present himself as being a bit younger than he is. But yeah, it's nice to see artists who blow up a little bit, a little bit later when they're not like 14 or something. Benjamin says, nice to know, Father. I used to listen to Army of the Pharaohs, Wu-Tang Clan, mostly East Coast rap, but always had a West Coast face, but always moved to NYC. I've listened to precisely one Army of the Pharaohs song. My mate sent me it, and it was good. The flows were good. The flows were tight. I'll tell you what, if you do like rap, there's a guy who's been showing up on my algorithm a lot lately. He's so good. He's called Ari at Home. This dude here. He's sick. So he's built out this entire rig for him to be able to produce beats like in the street. And he goes out on these like 4-hour live streams and produces beats just on the streets of New York and finds rappers to jump in and rap for him. And the raps are just so good. They're actually incredible. Highly recommend this guy if you want some fun content. Yeah, he's a vibe. He also has collabed with Harry. I think if you're new in chat, you might not know, but I edit clips for Harry. Harry Mack. He's a freestyle rapper. He's amazing. He's the best in the world at it by such a fucking margin. But him and Harry have some clips together. Highly recommend watching them if you get some time. Smudge, anyone like beatbox? You know what? I don't know anything about beatbox except I found this French group who beatbox recently. Oh my god, I see French beatbox group. What are they called? Berry Wham. That's it. Berry Wham. Oh, they're on America's Got Talent apparently. But yeah, should consider checking out Berry Worm if you oh yeah, Beardy Man as well. Oh, Beardy's great. Oh yeah, great taste. There's so much taste. And also Chandler, I recognize the names, but I could not point out a single track by Delta Automator or even Deltron 3030. 3030? I don't know. Modi says, if you go to rewatch, there are websites that map out the filler. Yeah, see, I've tried to like rewatch all the anime that I enjoyed when I was a kid, but I just don't want to spoil the magic, you know? I feel like some things need to be preserved in the time that they were. And I know that my memory of like shows like Naruto is so much better than the reality ever was, and I'm not going to challenge that memory. It's the one thing I've got to hold on to, man. It's the one thing I've got to hold on to. I do not want to challenge my joyous childhood memories. Candace says Deltron 3030 is the album by those two people. Okay. Yeah, so I just recognize the name Deltron Kiyomi Sapien. I feel like it's probably come up in like a YouTube playlist, but I could not point out to a tune of theirs. Oh yeah, Benjamin. Ari at Home has collabed with Harry and Beardy Man in the same clip. Yeah, search it up. Yeah, if you want to search it up later, search up Ari at Home, Beardy Man, and Harry Mack. It'll blow your mind. The level of skill in this world is inconceivable. Viewer, we haven't got to the presentation stage yet. We'll get there eventually. I'm just yapping at the moment. You'll get a full breakdown. Reginaldo says you do well. Some of them age so poorly. Yeah. Yeah, some of them did age really poorly. The only like childhood anime that I rewatched was Hunter x Hunter, but I just think that one's so great, and it got re-released in 2011, so they updated the animation and everything. So I gave that a rewatch, and that lived up to how good my childhood expectations were. But I don't want to watch the ones that are like really special to me as a kid. Like I used to play all the Dragon Ball Z video games, the Naruto video games. Yeah. I just remember like going into school in the mornings and like just talking Naruto. Happier times. Modi, there was so much fan service that went over my head as a kid. Yeah, that's actually the big thing, right? Like the real weird, like when I was a kid, I never understood why people thought anime was a weird hobby, and then you rewatch some of the ones you watched as a kid, or you see clips and you're like, it's kind of. I think the author's getting a bit too much gratification from these scenes. It's why I'm really reluctant to recommend some anime that I think are really great, because they just have some weird moments that you need to just kind of get through. And you're like, this is kind of sus. But yeah, Attack on Titan does a really good job of being like an accessible anime that doesn't rely on fan service and like weirdly sexual bits of the story for no reason. Chandler, Mushishi is actually on my list, you know. I've been listening to a song that I've now found out is like used in the anime. It's by a British artist. She's called Lucy Rose. I think the song is Lucy Rose Mushishi. I think it's Lines is the one that's used in the anime. Shiver, sorry. Yeah, so the song is apparently the opening of the second season, called Shiver by Lucy Rose. Yeah, I've been absolutely sweating it lately. So, and I've been seeing in all the YouTube comments, people say it's from Mushishi, which was already on the list of things to watch. But yeah, I love me like an episodic anime where every episode is its own little story. I can dip in and dip out. Nate says, have you talked about Trump's golden visa $5 million citizenship? Oh, mate. Yeah, no, so we haven't talked about that actually, but yeah, I did see recently that the US is now launching a $5 million golden visa, right? Like a gold card instead of a green card, which is supposedly meant to bring in investment into the US. But there already is actually like a visa program that I think the threshold is something like 800,000 you have to pay for it. But then you have to invest a certain amount into an American business. So it's a bit of a weird choice, I think, to launch a $5 million visa. The weirdest part was when they asked him if Russian oligarchs would be eligible for it, and his response was, "Maybe. I know some good oligarchs. Like some of the oligarchs are nice guys." Let me find the exact quote for you. Golden visa. Let's see, oligarch. What was the quote? Oh yeah, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. When he was asked if the $5 million gold card would be eligible for Russian oligarchs, kind of wild, kind of wild. But you can also just pay $5 million for a dinner with him, right? That just dropped recently. Dinner with Trump. Let me see. Ah, there we go. Yeah, so Wired reported on it that you can. This is crazy. This is this is the president. But yeah, business leaders are paying as much as $5 million to meet one-on-one with the president at his Florida compound, whereas others are paying $1 million a piece to dine with him in a group setting. This is like not an old article. This is March 4th. This is 3 days ago. And well, I mean, it sounds like a bribe when you see this, right? Like a $5 million dinner. It kind of kind of reminds me of the Jay-Z meme, right? What would you pick, $5 million or dinner with Donald Trump? I'd definitely pick the dinner with Jay-Z, right? Would you pick the 500,000 or dinner with Jay-Z? And like people are like, oh, if you pick the dinner with Jay-Z, he'll teach you how to make billions of dollars. I think if you pick the dinner with Jay-Z, he'll tell you that you should have taken the 500 grand. Oh God, I'm struggling to keep up with chat, gang. Hang on, let me see if I can pull this up here. Might make it a bit easier for me to keep up with it. There we go. Mercy, I've actually started Dan to Dan. I'm like 6 episodes in, but I've just never got around to finishing it. Don't worry, it's on the list. On the list. But that definitely leans into the weird parts of anime. But it's it's self-aware enough that I don't mind. Benjamin says, I had satellite for German channels, so my vibe was watching One Piece and Naruto in German dub. German voices just hit differently. You know what? That is like so relatable. Obviously, I had the French channels, but like Naruto in French is like, it just transports me back. Even if I just hear a clip. As I said, I haven't rewatched it, but I've seen clips and like rewatched some scenes, and yeah, it just I'm so glad someone else can relate to having a satellite for foreign anime dubs. So good. Reginaldo says, Yu Yu Hakusho had a wonderful dub in Brazil. First one that did it. Oh, hang on. Oh no, I accidentally closed the chat. There we go. Help to popularize some local sayings from different regions. Interesting. Yeah, I think that the bringing the price of eggs down conversation is dead now. I've not heard anyone mention the whole eggs thing. I thought that's what the whole election was about. Now with the bird flu and everything, I think eggs reached like a peak of like a peak price for months now, right? Because of bird flu. Yeah. New Zealand is about $8 for a dozen eggs on a special. Oh, that is so expensive. Oh. Dinner with Jay-Z and Beyonce, what you order? Fish fillet. Oh yeah, the Dan to Dan music is so good. Like I've listened to the intro like dozens of times, probably 100+ times actually, and I'm still only 6 episodes in. Couldn't force myself to watch more. Not enough LSD. No, yeah, it is out there. Yeah, it is out there. It's definitely one you got to zone out a bit to enjoy. There's a more perfect union about why eggs are actually. Oh, Oh, okay. More Perfect Union has like a video for everything. They've been really churning out the quality lately. I like that they add like a lot more interviews and stuff now, which I thought was kind of missing. But they've been doing a good job lately. More Perfect Union. Uh, but yeah, where were we? We were. But yeah, if you've got five M's spare, you can buy a dinner with Donald Trump, which is definitely not a bribe. Or you can get a group setting for a mil a piece. A mil a piece is crazy, crazy work. Why there's like 20 headlines every day. What's going on in this world? Did I like time warp or something a few years ago and I'm just like in another timeline now? Who knows? The 1 million dinner is a better deal. You have to take all the other people down with you. I don't think any of it's a good deal. But I'll tell you what, we'll get to. If you don't have 5 mil, we'll just create a meme coin. Let's go for it. Well, let's go for it. I don't know if you saw the clip of Elon Musk on Joe Rogan. Actually, like Joe Rogan was actually like somewhat critical for the first time in a while, and he was like, why are meme coins legal, basically? And Elon was really struggling to defend it. It's a rough watch, but it seems like Joe Rogan's remembering that he has a brain lately, which is nice to see. Whatever happened to Fadcoin? Oh, I'm waiting for the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve to launch. I've I've recently come into $5 million, and I think I've got a good idea of how I can make the Fadcoin launch really really pop. But yeah, let's get to the topic of today's Yap Sesh. Is going to be what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about California. I just need to get my notes up. Better see Philip from New Vegas, otherwise I don't want that video. Waiting to blow my check off on Fadcoin. You know what, Mr. Cynic? I think you might be right. Maybe the Mayans were right, because 2012 is probably the last year that felt somewhat normal. Maybe the Mayans were right, and everything did actually end in 2012, and we just ever since then we've just been in a dream, right? It definitely feels that way. Yeah. Let me get my notes up, and we'll get ready to get started. But yeah, as I was saying, my addiction to American news has for sure been getting out of hand lately. I just can't get enough of it, man. Like I even watched the like entire like congressional address that was on Tuesday, I think. Like, why did I watch an hour and a half Trump speech? I don't know why, but it was great. There was a bit in it where he said that for some reason this was not really well reported, but there's a bit in it where he said that God had chosen him to make America great again when he was talking about the assassination attempt. Um, yeah, I just think you can come for me here, but I think it's a bad idea to have the leader of your country think that they're an agent of God. I think that's wild work. I just can't get enough of it. The glazing was crazy though. It was like WWE entrances. Because the walk into the Capitol is like a long hallway, and every time a person would walk down, there'd be like the standing ovation. Yeah, it literally felt like a football match. It was. I always thought British government was a bit mad, but yeah, the Americans they always do it. They always just take it up a notch, right? They always take it up a notch. Like in the UK, you'll see them screaming at each other. But in the US, they have like WWE style entrances. The only thing that was missing was like an intro song, right? Like a walk in music, Eye of the Tiger or something. That's Chuck says, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they all think that. Only he would say it out loud, though. Yeah, no, like the reaction was remarkably positive. I noticed that there was like a slightly bigger gap between him saying that and like the round of applause starting versus everything else. Because I think a few people were like, interesting choice of words. uh, oh yeah, yeah, 100%. It felt like a Stalin speech. It was really funny seeing in the back there was Mike Johnson and JD Vance, and like Mike Johnson would always get up and start clapping before JD Vance, and like you see one go up, then the other go up, and then he'd go down, and then he'd go up and he'd go up. Honestly, it's yeah, yeah. Benjamin says Trump did WWE for real. Oh yeah, to be fair, Trump's WWE appearance was amazing. If there's one thing I can give him some good credit for is that the man can perform on WWE. That was such good fun. Same with actually Logan Paul's WWE appearance. Like his appearances have been pretty fire. The guy gets into it. Yeah, I think there's probably a reason why Trump and Logan Paul do so well at WWE. Maybe not worth thinking about it too much. This is how democracy dies with thunderous applause. Bars, bro. But yeah, let me get my notes up and we'll get cracking. Need to make sure I'm recording. Yep. And we'll dive in to the topic of the day. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly go to the toilet. I'll be right back. And then we'll jump in. Okay. Oh, someone donated on Ko-Fi. Thank you so much. I just got an email. Hang on. Okay, I'm gonna go pop to the toilet, but then praise the sun. Oh, thank you so much, praise the sun, for the dono. Really appreciate it. Just got an email to let me know. Yeah, thank you so much. Chandler says, "Our 1 hour ship posting isn't worth recording." I guess. No, I recorded it all. I record from the start of the stream. I was just checking that I had actually pressed record. But yeah, the Yap session is the best part, man. I Show Speed was in WWE as well. Crazy. That man is an athlete though. Like I don't know why that man is like built crazy. Oh, crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the toilet. Okay, I'll be right back, and we'll get cracking. Hang on. Make sure you've got water. You're hydrated. Okay. Oh, hey, Pat. I'm gonna go to the toilet, right? So I'll be right back. But I'm doing great, and we're just about to start the presentation. So feel free to stick around if you want to stick around. Feel free to hop out if you need to go. But I'm gonna be 2 seconds. Get some water. Look away from a screen. I need to go to the toilet. Oop. Hello, we're back. Oh, hiya, praise the sun. The sun leaves so we can appreciate it more when he comes back. Way to glaze yourself, bro. Also, thank you for the dono, by the way. I got a little email notification. I do appreciate it. Yeah, tonight, thank you so much for the support. As I say, support is never expected, but always appreciated. Much love, guys. Thank you, Hards, for finally setting up a way for me to pay you. You don't need to thank me for taking your hard-earned cash from you. And 101 knows, if you do stick around, we are going to address that point, because that was a very common criticism of, yeah, I'm not going to skip ahead, but, you know, I'm going to come with a Gucci. Yeah, you've just paid for my new pair of Louboutins, right? My red bottoms, my my Rolex. The Rolex fund has grown by a little bit. Okay, so let me. I think I've got everything ready. Are we ready? Yeah, I think we're. Oh no, these are the wrong notes. I will stop myself from arguing with those. Yeah, no need to argue, gang. We're gonna be friends here tonight. Okay, we'll be friends. Okay. Ooh, where are we? Smash your deal. What do you mean? What do you mean the kitty? I think the kitty should be visible right there, chilling. She is having the time of her life. Oh, there we go. Hang on, can I get it to focus on her? You can get a kitty cam. There we go. How you doing, Bubby? You good? I think she's very relaxed. The zoomies did end. Cartier food ball. Oh yeah. She's currently got a Facebook Marketplace food ball. I don't know why I call her Bubby, but that's just the nickname that I don't know the gods have blessed me with. I've set up a little perch for her as well. We're never going to get into this fucking presentation, are we? I've set up a little perch for her under the desk because like I have my balcony window here, so I like mounted one of those little window seats underneath, and she like likes to sleep under there because she's covered and like she's next to me. It's very wholesome. Oh, I'll tell you what though, today I tried, or for the last few days, I've been trying to slowly trim her nails. And she's mostly cooperative, but she sometimes gets a little annoyed. And I've got like battle scars. I don't know if you'll be able to see them actually. I don't think. Yeah, there we go. You can see one on my my palm there, and then this finger as well has been. I don't know how to show you. There we go. Yeah, you can't see it. It's like on the side of my finger. There we go. Yeah, there's another wound. But yeah, the effort to trim her nails has been mixed results. I take the wins that I can get, and I take some injuries in the process. Messi says, "OMG, Bubby from Flapjack." It's not necessarily a reference. I don't know what Flapjack is. Bubby is just the noise that my mouth wants to make when I see her. But I'm glad if there's a reference. You also have freakishly long thumbs. Do I have long fingers? I don't know. You know what they say about long fingers, right? Mr. X, would you rather have $5 or $12? Is that a trick? Is it going to be like $5 versus 12 Zimbabwean dollars or something? Or is it a reference? Who knows? But yeah, she's very cooperative, and she's super friendly. Hey, Bobby, you good? I'm so happy. OMG, Flapjack was a weird but goated Cartoon Network show. Okay, I never heard of it. Never heard of it. I didn't actually have Cartoon Network as a kid. Ah. But yeah, right. Okay, let's actually get into this because otherwise we're gonna be here all night. Where are we? Where are we? But yeah, kitties are the best. Adopting her was easily one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Yeah, my average level of happiness every day is just like been boosted, and even though I can't sleep in anymore, it's definitely a worthy trade off. Okay, so Flapjack is kind of like law for Adventure Time because I love Adventure Time. I've seen so many episodes. Yeah, there's oh my god, there's the one episode. What's it called? Where it's like a time loop episode. Hall of Egress. That's the one. Oh, that's the one I always show people. I don't know if you might not know it off the top of your head, but it's the best episode of Adventure Time. Hall of Egress. It's like 11 minutes, and it's such a complete story, and it's a trip. You need how to roll. I need something, man. I need something. Um, I just, yeah, this is what happens when you don't talk to people in real life. I just yap on stream. But I'm going to socialize this year, get some of this social energy out of my brain because I feel like I don't need to socialize when I'm on my own. But I just start yapping when I'm on stream. Flapjack. I'm actually going to write it down. Yeah, praise the sun. So the federal minimum wage is $7.25. Some states have it higher. A lot of states still have the $7.25 minimum wage, and yeah, housing is expensive, which is why we're going to talk about minimum wages today. Okay. Yep, audio's recording. I'm actually going to record video as well for a bit. Hopefully, my camera doesn't overheat. Yeah, well, I mean, $1,000 is good housing, especially if you're in California. But right, let's actually get into it and stuff with all the segues. I don't know why I'm so hyperactive. I think it's because I had a cup of tea beforehand. You know how that Earl Grey sends me, man. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna clap to make my life easier later. Boom, 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 boom. So we're talking about the minimum wage today, gang. In case you didn't know, the US federal minimum wage is currently $7.25. This is a number that's not actually changed since 2009. In 2009, Instagram and the iPad didn't exist, and the top song on the charts was Fireflies by Owl City. And today, $7.25 is still the minimum wage in 19 different US states. However, there is a notable exception to this, which is the US state of California, which is granted one of the most expensive states in the country, but they've taken a pretty aggressive approach with their minimum wage, relative to the rest of the US at least. The most recent change happened just last year when a bill was granted raising the minimum wage for fast food workers from $16 up to $20, representing the biggest statewide increase in American history, and putting the minimum wage for fast food workers at close to triple what the federal minimum actually is, and double what the California minimum was in 2014. So between 2014 and 2024, the minimum wage for fast food workers in California has actually more than doubled, going from $9 up to $20. Oh, frames are laggy. Oh no. Okay, hang on. Okay, is this smoother? Are we back? Sorry, I had chat on the side. That was my mistake. Okay, I think we're back. Are we back? Okay, amazing. Let's run it up from the top. We'll run it back. Don't worry. Amazing. That's what I get for putting chat on the wrong window. Let's pretend none of that happened, eh? uh, I think I thought my camera could handle recording internally and stream into the computer, but clearly not. Boring tech stuff. Okay, let's run it back. Let's run it back. Where were we? We were here. Okay. Yeah, Men in Black Mind Wipe, right? You saw nothing, okay? But yeah, so we're talking about the minimum wage today. So the US federal minimum wage is currently at $7.25, which is a number that's not changed since 2009. For context, in 2009, the top song in the charts was Fireflies by Owl City, and neither the iPad nor Instagram existed. Today, $7.25 is still the minimum wage in 19 different states. To answer your question, Praise the Sun, this is going to make it a little bit more depressing for you. But if you work in food service, like as a waitress or a waiter, your employer can actually pay you less than the minimum wage, and you're expected to make up the difference with tips. If the difference isn't made up with tips, then they have to supplement it. But I think in Alabama, it's as low as like $2.50 that your employer has to, I think it might be $2.25, Chandler says. And then you're expected to make up the rest from tips from customers. A little bit dystopian. But yeah, if the difference isn't made up by tips, then your employer has to step in. But that in itself is already crazy. So that's why it says non-exempt employees. There's also exemptions for like retraining programs for, I guess, from people in prison don't have to be paid. And there are some programs in some states for disabled people where they can be paid below the minimum wage. Whole side point. We can get into that later. But yeah, as we were saying, $7.25 is still the minimum wage in something like 19 states. However, there is a notable exception to this, which is the US state of California, which is granted one of the most expensive states in the US. They've taken a much more hardline approach they've taken at least a much stronger approach to their minimum wage relative to the rest of the US at least. The most recent change happened just last year when they passed a bill that granted fast food workers a 25% increase from $16 up to $20, meaning that in the last decade, in the last decade, this minimum wage has actually more than doubled. In 2014, it was just $9, and in 2025 now, it is $20. And is approximately triple the federal minimum. Crazy. But yeah, this minimum wage applies for folk working in fast food businesses that have more than 60 spots across the US, and it's almost 3 times the federal minimum. However, this bill was a pretty controversial proposal at the time. There were kind of 2 groups really, right? There were the labor groups on one side who were arguing that it was a necessary increase to deal with the cost of living in California. And there was the other side of like industry group and franchise owners that argued that it would push up costs for customers, and it would like drive job losses, and it would juice up inflation because those costs would be passed on to consumers. When Donald Trump was asked during his campaign whether he'd be up for increasing the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to a higher number, he said the following. He said that in California, they raised it up to a very high number, and your restaurants are going out of business all over the place. The population is shrinking. It had a very negative impact. This was what was said on the campaign trail. However, now we're almost a year into the increase actually being implemented, and there's actually enough data to measure the impact of this change. A few different research groups have been looking at it. There's one at Harvard and another from UC Berkeley that have been following this initiative really closely. And the group at UC Berkeley recently published the second of 3 planned studies into the impact of the change. I actually wanted to run you through it because I think it's actually quite enlightening. Because you would think that the impact of such a big change in wages would be pretty cut and dry. But in the lead up, there were lots of conflicting headlines. And today, if you just type it into Google, you'll likely see a lot of conflicting headlines. And so I want to, maybe help you cut through some of the noise because I think it's important to have a better understanding of what happened. Crisis King, a resident still been blocked from their homes to rebuild. I don't know what the latest is with the fires, actually. I think, I mean, I don't know why they're building homes in fire plains anyways, but hey ho, we'll see. But yeah, where were we? So yeah, as I said, you would expect the impact of a change like this to be pretty cut and dry, but there's still a lot of conflicting headlines, and in the lead up to this 25% increase, there was a lot of debate. One industry group took out a headline they took out a full page ad in a newspaper claiming that California had lost nearly 10,000 jobs after the $20 minimum wage was signed. This was pretty inaccurate because they took a point of year where fast food jobs always drop because they're seasonal. So as California exits the summer every year, there's always a drop in fast food jobs. And it's an example of some kind of maybe shoddy reporting around it. That's all right. I think people can disagree. I will tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of Donald Trump, but it's not, as long as you're not rude, you're allowed to have a different opinion to me. But yeah, so if you read like literally anything about the minimum wage, the usual argument against increasing it goes something like this, right? So the idea is that if wages go up, then the cost of operation for the business is going to go up. And so they're going to mitigate that increased cost by either increasing prices, by getting rid of staff, or by closing up shop entirely if they can't afford it. That's the usual argument against the minimum wage. In a nutshell, right? There are other arguments, but this is the one you'll likely hear, that increasing the minimum wage is a bad thing because it's going to lead directly to the cost being passed on immediately to the consumer. However, like this is nowhere near like a consensus, especially even among like quite talented economists. We can take the case of Daron Acemoglu, who, if you don't know, he won the Nobel Prize in Economics last year. And he's been a huge advocate for increasing the minimum wage in the US from $7.25 up to $15. Guy has a Nobel Prize in Economics that he got last year. He clearly at least knows a decent amount, right? He's one of the most prolific economists of like all time. And so, this is just an example to show you that it's not so cut and dry. If you picked a different economist, like Milton Friedman, for example, who he got a Nobel Prize in the 70s, right? He claimed that the people who are hurt most by higher minimums are the poverty-stricken. Milton Friedman is a controversial guy. But that's just to highlight that there's nowhere near like 100% consensus on the effects of increasing a minimum wage. And basically anything you read that's economics related or about the economy, you'll notice that there's rarely 100% consensus on the economics. You can build out an argument, but truly the only way you can really know is like post hoc, right, after you've implemented the change. I think a great example of this lack of consensus came after the wake of the financial crisis, when Queen Elizabeth in the UK just asked her economists one question, right? Like, why did nobody see it coming? And none of them really had a great answer. Yeah, that's one way to put it, Chandler. But yeah, this lack of consensus applies as well to the law in California, because there was one report that was published by a group called Berkeley Research Group, arguing that the increase had done like all the bad things that had been predicted. Tens of thousands of job losses, double-digit percentage price hikes, and mass restaurant closures. However, the group at UC Berkeley, the university, argued that there were minimal price hikes, that fast food restaurants were actually opening more, and that it had basically no negative effect on employment. And you might be, wondering which group was right, the university group or Berkeley Research Group, which is actually a private company. And I mean, we're going to go deeper into some critique, but the first thing I would say when looking at Berkeley Research Group, which is the group that said that there were thousands of job losses, major price hikes, and restaurant closures, is that this report wasn't like a university or an academic report. Berkeley Research Group is, it's a consulting firm, right? It's a private company, and they openly admit that the study that they published was commissioned by industry groups. It was commissioned by like the fast food industry, effectively. Which on its own should make you pretty skeptical. But I think there's more critique when you dive a little bit further in, because they make some pretty sus claims across the board. One thing you'll notice is that most of the criticism that I could find came from a group called the Employment Policies Institute, which I seem to think was just like a research group, right? And the Employment Policy Institute published a bunch of these articles and stuff. You can find them on Google, saying things like, new policy brief proves that California's $20 fast food wage is costing jobs and raising prices. But if you look into this group, the Employment Policies Institute, they're a non-profit, right, supposedly. But they have, first of all, 0 staff or employees. They share their entire staff with Berman & Company, which is a PR firm which is headed up by a restaurant and hotel industry lobbyist. And they've acquired a bunch of web domains like minimumwage.org, fightfor15dollars.com, and effectively act as like a shell company to vestedly promote the interests of the restaurant and hotel industry under the guise of independent research. Kind of crazy. And this is like some of the earliest Google search results that you'll find. One thing which I thought was especially shady in this case, at least, is that this group, the Employment Policies Institute, uses really similar branding to the Economic Policy Institute. One of which is like an actual nonprofit, which was founded about 5 or 6 years earlier. And the other is a nonprofit that has no location or staff and is entirely staffed by a PR firm. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they use such similar branding to a group that does actual research and that isn't like a PR company. It's kind of wild, right? Like, it's kind of wild that this is like propaganda basically on Google. But yeah, Lizzie, as you say, always follow the money. A nonprofit with 0 staff is kind of wild. But yeah, throughout this research, particularly in the case of the Berkeley Research Group, there was a lot of questionable statistical methods that they used to arrive to the conclusion that jobs were being lost and that fast food, like the fast food industry was collapsing in California because of the increased minimum wage. I mean, some of the, just a handful of the issues that they went through was the fact that they didn't compare the prices to other states. They didn't compare the prices to fast food restaurants that weren't covered by the law. They didn't account for the fact that seasonally sales vary. And in fact, the time frame that they pick is specifically chosen to present like the worst possible impact of this law, supposedly. And they also didn't account for pre-existing trends, which was like a national slowdown in fast food consumption in the years prior to the law being passed. And, one thing you'll notice is that, obviously, I found this out because I looked into it, but a lot of news outlets simply didn't look into it and ran with the headline just off rip. Yeah, Chandler, there are so many similar organizations like this where they like look like research institutes, but they're literally just shell companies. Or in some cases, they're just private companies that perform commissioned research, right? They're being paid millions of dollars to do research for the fast food industry. Loads of news outlets ran with this headline of the minimum wage basically causing massive job losses, but the statistical methods that were used were quite shoddy. Like, they didn't even do basic stuff, right? Like, there's loads of algorithms that are freely available that allow you to account for seasonal variance and for the natural rise and fall because of the changes in weather that happen every year. But I do think but I do think it's a fair question to ask, like, why didn't this happen? Why didn't wages increase the cost of operations and lead to mass closures in California? Because, it kind of makes sense at a first glance, right? McDonald's isn't a charity. If they have to increase their wages and their costs, why wouldn't they also like proportionally increase their prices or have mass unemployment or closures? Well, Chandler, all I'll say is that probably the journalists don't really check. They also go off headlines. In some cases, it's a bit more blatantly biased. But yeah, I do think it's a fair question to ask why they might have been wrong or why there actually even is debate here. Because the system I've described, right, where wages cause prices to rise, does seem to make sense at a glance. It seems almost like a no-brainer that increasing wages would make fast food inflation worse. And so that's why, so many people argue that line. But it is more complicated, as things tend to be. So the first thing to acknowledge is that there is a modest price increase that was discovered, even in the studies that were broadly positive towards this change. So the UC Berkeley study, not Berkeley Research Group, the university study, found that the average increase 2 quarters after the policy was about 1.5%. So by increasing the minimum wage by 25%, there was an average price increase of about 1.5%. In fact, what seemed to have happened is that California restaurants overcorrected in the first 3 months after the change and increased the prices by more than they needed to. In the second set of 3 months, in the second quarter, they increased their prices less than the rest of the US. And this is significantly less than what industry opposition had predicted, right? For example, this headline, which had predicted $18 Big Macs if the minimum wage was to be increased. Whereas the measured impact of this actually specifically looked at burger places. The measured impact was more close to 1.5%. And part of the reason why you don't see these as Praise the Sun says, McDonald's exists in other countries and it's not that much more expensive, even though they have higher minimum wages. But part of the reason why, increasing the wages didn't just increase the cost of operations by a similar amount is to do with kind of the dynamics of the fast food industry and the dynamics of hiring people. Because you've got to think about 2 quite important factors, I think. First of all, hiring people is not free. The whole process of hiring people is quite expensive. And secondly, people are much less likely to quit a better paid job. I did a quick Google, and if you do a quick Google to try and figure out the costs involved in hiring someone to work in a restaurant or in fast food, you see numbers that range from $1,700 to $5,800, and some numbers which are even in the 5 figures. Basically, hiring people is really expensive. And if you can stop people from quitting, you can actually potentially save more money than you would if you had to repeatedly hire people throughout the year. It costs time, money, and effort to hire people. It costs money to post an advert online, to review applications, to do interviews, to pay for any clothing and equipment a new employee might need. And even when they start, there'll be a gap in productivity that you'll have to account for. And that gap in productivity between an experienced employee and a new hire can be pretty significant and can actually cost you thousands of dollars. Mercy, the headline was from Fox News. That I wouldn't read too deeply into it. Smash says, it seems like for such religious country, American business owners are quite greedy. Yeah, tell me about it, man. Tell me about it. But yeah, that is to say that the idea that increasing the minimum wage automatically increased costs for the end consumer by a proportional amount is quite short-sighted. And it doesn't necessarily account for the fact that increasing wages can have massive benefits as well for an employer. As I said, it costs a lot of money to hire an employee if they leave, and they are much more likely to leave if they're not getting paid enough to survive. But there is also a second dynamic to this, right? Which is the idea that fast food restaurants can't absorb any increasing costs. The idea that fast food restaurants are operating at the absolute minimum profit that they they can already to be competitive in the marketplace. And that just seems to like not really be the case. If we look at inflation in the fast food industry versus general inflation across the US over the last decade, I feel like even anecdotally, you might have noticed that fast food has gotten crazy expensive already. Actual inflation between 2014 and 2024 was about 31%. But basically every major fast food chain has hiked their prices by significantly more than that. If you take a basket of 10 items and compare their prices over the last decade. At McDonald's, prices have on average doubled over the last decade. Right? Popeyes has gone up by 86%. Subway is a bit more reasonable at 39%, but still above inflation. Chipotle, 75%. And this at least implies that if the costs have increased above what inflation has been, there's a margin of profit that these fast food places can dig into. And the reason why they might want to do that is because, you know, fewer people are going to fast food restaurants. If you've been paying attention lately, you'll likely see that different fast food restaurants have been launching deals on like lower value meals in order to get more people in the door, which seems to imply that they're reaching the ceiling of what they can charge. And if they want more customers, they have to consider reducing the profit margin. And it's not just like me saying this. The CEO of Chipotle, after this change came into place, actually said that he'd not seen any real impact on sales because they were able to absorb most of the cost and keep their burritos around $10. This is a statement from the then CEO of Chipotle speaking on the issue of the California minimum wage. Raise the standards. They don't care about the profits. They just want to have the most exploited workforce possible. Well, yeah, I mean, I think the head office definitely cares about the profit. Yeah, exactly right. Like McDonald's, you know, even anecdotally, you likely know that McDonald's has gotten expensive, and they have a limit on how much they can jack up the prices before people stop going there. And therefore, they do have an incentive in cases where they've already jacked up prices way above inflation to maybe consider digging into their profit margin rather than increasing prices even more. Just to further highlight that it's more complicated than increasing minimum wages automatically increases end costs for users by the same amount. The dynamics can sometimes be that way, but it doesn't make sense to assume that that's what always happens. You say, oh, food's gotten cheaper in Vietnam. Crazy. Have executive bonuses increased by 100%. I wouldn't be surprised. We can always check later, but I would not be surprised. I don't think the McDonald's CEOs are starving for cash at the moment. Wow. Reginaldo says, in Brazil, an ice cream used to cost 150, and now it's about 6 reals. I think that's the currency, right? Brazilian reals. Crazy. That's like, wow, 4x. Wow. In Australia, we're better off buying a steak lunch at a pub than a Big Mac these days. Yeah, that's what's happened, right? Like, fast food costs have started to approach the costs of like traditional sit-down restaurants. And when you start to get to that level, you can't really juice up the prices much more before people just go to a better restaurant where they get a fresh meal. Viktor Orban promised to raise minimum wages every year, which sounds good on paper, but inflation for food prices and housing are also increasing. So basically nothing changes. Yeah, I mean, especially if the minimum wage isn't increasing in lockstep with like food and housing, right? Like if food is increasing by 6% in a year and wages have only increased 3%, then you've actually had a pay cut in real terms. See you later, Mainframe. Thanks for joining. I'll tell you what, Chandler, that did come up on power and its scripting effects. It came up in my research. Obviously, I didn't have the time to read it all, but it's good to hear another vote for it. It's actually let me actually write that down. I wasn't going to write. Praise the Sun says a Big Mac cost about $4 here, and today it's just over $3 USD for the same burger. Crazy! That's a nice one. That's good stuff. Chandler says, you need to know kind of a lot about neurology to understand the read, but it's a short read. I know you do know about it. Yeah, it was my degree, wasn't it? Obviously it was a few years ago, 2020 that I graduated. Rip. Oh, almost 5 years. God. But yeah, I think I can get up to speed. And that's kind of nice that it's got some neurology in it. I would like to get back into that stuff. Um, Reginaldo says, "Oh, they just shrink sizes." Yeah, that's the other side of it, right? Increase the price and reduce the size. Um, there are some really predatory examples of shrinkflation. One of the worst ones I saw was a toilet paper brand where, in order to use less toilet paper, they increased the diameter of like the cardboard tube in the middle. So they made the cardboard tube bigger and they used less toilet paper, so that people couldn't tell that there was less toilet paper. It looked the same size, but the cardboard tube had been like increased. It's so predatory. There's also Toblerones. Sorry, we'll do a quick segue because Toblerone. This one really annoyed me. Toblerone. bit of a segue, gang, but I just feel like you need to see this. This I think is one of the examples that really annoyed me. Toblerones are like a British staple, and what they did was they removed some of the triangles of chocolate, so there are fewer triangles. But when it's in the box, you can't tell that there are fewer triangles, and you think you're getting the same thing. It's so ridiculous. This was the most annoying example of shrinkflation to me personally, because Toblerones they're always eaten like around like Christmas and things like that, times of celebration, and they're doing us like this. Pathetic. Honestly, the creativity for scamming is too high. It is ridiculous. Air in the chips bag as well. I know that you need to have some air in it, but they're totally taking the piss with it now. They changed the shape of the bottles as well. Yes. Let me see if I can find the toilet paper shrinkflation. Yeah. So with toilet paper, what they can do is they can make the roll shorter so that it's the same width, but it's actually shorter. But if it's in a bag, you can't tell that it's not the same size. Or they make the tube in the middle bigger. Outrageous. Shrinkflation is the most annoying thing in the world to me. Ah, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, that was a brief segue for me to complain about getting screwed on Toblerones. And also the quality of the chocolate has gotten way worse as well. It's the chocolate itself isn't as good, and they're giving us less of it. Yeah, no changes to alcohol. Yeah. Well, I will say it's harder to get away with scamming people on booze. I think the alcoholics will clock it out straight away. Mr. Cynic, can't you just read the sheet count? First of all, I feel like people don't really remember. Like, I don't know, the last time you bought toilet paper, do you remember exactly how many sheets there were? I don't know. But also, they can just make the sheets smaller as well. That's what my kitchen roll that I used to buy did. They just made instead of the sheets being like really big, they just made the sheets smaller, so you can keep the sheet count the same. But every sheet is not as good. It's tiny. I do need to get a bidet, praise the sun. You know what I do? The problem is I accidentally bought like 50 rolls of toilet paper because I wasn't paying attention on the order. And so I need to work my way through that before the bidet arrives. But yeah, I have like a little, like I look like one of those, those people in COVID that just like were buying out all of the toilet paper for some unknown reason. So I need to work through that. Yeah, because I thought I was buying 2 packs of like 16 or something, but I was actually buying 2 packs of 32, something like that, right? So I just have like I'll tell you what. Okay, before we continue, I'll just get the toilet paper for you. Give me 2 seconds, okay? Yeah, puppy. Wait up, okay? This is all my toilet paper that I have for some unknown reason. So once I've worked my way through all of this, I'll get a bidet, okay? I just messed up the online order. It's too much. I've also worked through like half of it already, right? This is like what's left over. It's a bit ridiculous. I got bands, bro. I'm stacking bands. Yeah, it's gotten a bit out of hand. I've already like I've already used most of it as well. It's just a bit ridiculous. I know. Don't shame me. Okay, I was sleep deprived when I was making the order. You have no idea how much toilet paper I have. Yeah, as I say, I've used probably about like 50% of it already. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna need a bidet for a while. If you get a bidet, make sure to disinfect the nozzle every time you poop, otherwise it's nasty. Smart. I'll keep that in mind. Well, if there's any way I want poo particles to get, it's probably the toilet, right? That probably. Also, yeah, Chandler. Tony's Chocolonely is the one. It's great. The chocolate's great. The company's great. They're good people. Tony's. 308 square feet. Oh yeah, the Pringles cans are shorter. I've got a theory that they're narrower and there's more air as well, but that's just a theory of mine. Anyways, brief little aside. Where were we? Let's get back into it. Yeah, that toilet paper is my greatest shame. Every time I see it in the cupboard, it's a personal failure of mine to have this much fucking toilet paper everywhere. But yeah, the bidet is coming. The bidet is coming. Anyways, where were we? We were talking about Chipotle. Yeah, so the Chipotle CEO guy said they could absorb the cost. Basically, that's what we got to, right? It was totally fine for them to absorb the cost because they were already reaching the limit of what they could charge before a whole different swathe of restaurants became a palatable competitor to a place like Chipotle. If they increase the prices too much, the incentive to go to Chipotle over a sit-down restaurant begins to drop. My cat is obsessed with the plastic now. No, why did I bring it? Okay, you want to see? No, she doesn't want to see. Okay. This is so chaotic. Okay. Where were we? Boop, boop, boop. We were. What's happened to the Pringles? They've reduced the amount of seasoning. Oh God. Chandler, I think we can let people have Pringles. Life is hard enough, man. If you need some Pringles to get through it, I'll endorse that. I will say I am a kettle chips kind of guy, but you know, Pringles hit the spot from time to time. You know what they say, right? Oh yeah, I think that the point to stop eating Pringles is when you can't like fit your hand through the tube anymore, which I sadly cannot. I think that's nature telling you to cut back on Pringles consumption. But nah, eat what makes you happy. Okay, where were we? But yeah, let's just get back to it. We're almost done. As we were saying, oh, jalapeno kettle chips. You're a person of taste, Mercy. Person of taste. As we were saying, restaurants can absorb some of the costs. That's really the main point I was making because they've increased their prices well above inflation in the last decade. And so they have a margin that they can cut into without, going bust, especially because this law largely applies to, this law only applies to fast food outlets that have more than 60 locations nationwide. meaning basically that it was only for the larger ones. It did help a grand total of 750,000 workers, which is great. And I know that $20 sounds great as well. And, you know, I can't lie, there were some slight negative aspects to it as well, because even anecdotally, you'll see reports of people that have lost their hours. For example, this person in my community post said that they went from nearly 30 hours all the way down to 3 hours, which is a real shame. And it's sad to hear that they did lose hours. But what I will say is that, you know, if the majority of workers benefited from this and it actually brought their wage closer to a living wage, then it's overall a good thing. But it is, I will say, it is genuinely a shame to see people having lost hours. And it's been a historic problem that in industries like fast food and retail, many establishments don't want to offer full-time hours anyways. It's definitely been it's a historical problem and not necessarily a new problem. Praise the sun. Nah, not in fast food. And nah, it's in the UK as well. They have these things called 0 hours contracts where they can basically like give you anywhere from 0 hours, I guess, to a full 50 or something in a week. But yeah, it's a shame to see that some people were affected by it negatively, as every policy change does affect some people negatively. But it seems like the broad effect was largely positive, and restaurants have not gone out of business, which is good. I guess the question to ask, or the question to end on, is it enough, right? Because $20 an hour sounds pretty high for a fast food job, and 750,000 workers helped is a good thing. But when you look at the number that's been calculated as a living wage for California, then $20 isn't really necessarily a pay rise. It's much closer to like pay restoration, really. MIT has a calculate. Oh, where are we? Sorry. So MIT has a calculator on their website where they calculate what they believe to be a living wage based on like Bureau of Labor Statistics data, housing costs, and their living wage estimate for a single person with no children in California is $28.72, which is still far below the $20 wage, right? And that's why I say it's not necessarily a pay rise, but something closer to pay restoration. And I don't think it's that radical to say that you should be able to be housed and fed comfortably if you're working full time. But, you know, progress is progress, and we'll take what we can get. What I do find interesting is that broadly across the US, people are in favor of increasing the federal minimum wage from $7.25. 62% of people want it to be doubled to $15. And amongst those who oppose the change, the majority of those people still want an increase. They just think that $15 is too high. So amongst those who oppose the change to $15, 71% of those people still want it to be increased. And so the overwhelming majority of Americans want an increase in the minimum wage. And yet it seems to have not been really happening. I guess people are too worried about, I don't know, what person wears a dress or something, or what toilet you use. But yeah, as I said, the real important thing to take into account is that these things are complicated, man. And, you know, a simple narrative of increasing wages leads to increasing prices is not always true. And things can be more complicated. There is a good reason why there are good reasons why really highly respected economists, I think Darren Acemoglu is like the best example, are vocal advocates for increasing the minimum wage. It can have diverse effects on productivity, on pay restoration, on reducing inequality. And since Milton Friedman's initial claim in the 70s, there's been, 50 years of research into the effects of minimum wage increases. And by and large, you'll find that the closest thing there is to a consensus is that modest minimum wage increases don't have noticeable negative effects on employment. Hence why you'll find a lot of quite prominent economists who work in the space advocating for higher minimum wages. And I hope that the US will consider change, because a $7.25 minimum wage in like 19 states is wild, if you ask me. But hey ho, progress is progress, and I feel like you should take what you can get in this world. But yeah, praise the sun. You're right. You should be housed and fed regardless of your work status. That's a very good point. That is a very good point. China says, if you know about Keynesian economics, the basic premise the market serves the majority of the wealth. So if a small number of people have all the money, then the market will serve them. If the majority of people have the majority of the wealth, the market will serve them. Yeah, it's spot on. It's spot on. I'd say I know the basics of Keynesian economics, but I would not describe myself as anywhere near an expert. I definitely need to give it a proper read. Sorry if you can hear that. My cat's just prepping to have a poo in the litter box. Yeah, that's the craziest thing, right? Like the craziest thing I find is that it's like mostly red states that have this super low federal minimum wage, right? These states that have had long-term problems with poverty, right? Places like, um, Mississippi, which is, I'm pretty sure is the poorest state in the US, is Mississippi. Alabama, Virginia, all of these states have real problems with poverty. And their state legislature doesn't want to crank things up. Uh, praise the sun, yeah. Yeah, praise the sun. Honestly, there are many strange things about the US, which is why it's so interesting to me, even though I'm not American and I don't live there. I just can't get enough of how people have been convinced that $7.25 is acceptable, a number that has not been increased in 16 years. 16 years. Insane. Mr. Cynic says NYC's minimum wage is 16.25. I wonder if the federal went up, if people would leave New York to live somewhere cheaper and get paid the same. I imagine a decent chunk of people would, right? But also part of the reason why people don't just get up and leave is because they have, family and loved ones. And if you're raised in New York, you likely have some emotional attachment. But I mean, there are lots of parts of the US that would benefit from having more people. I definitely think Mississippi would benefit from having more people, given that, it's one of the poorest places in the developed world, really. Also, you need money to move, right? It's not free to move, right? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, as I say, uh, Mercy says it's the stealing of our free time that slows so much progress. Shoes, that's what he slows. If it is slows, then I do agree with you. But yeah, this is freedom, right? Freedom to be robbed. You're free to be robbed. uh, uh, Cost me 2K to move around the world. So, but yeah, I think Smaji visas and things are super complicated as well, right? To find a country that can accommodate you, and also you have to leave everyone you know and everything you've ever known. And if you want to actually go somewhere where the cost of living is more manageable, um, there's usually some trade-offs for that, right? Like living in New York City is a different experience to rural Tennessee. Yeah, and oh my god, New York rent prices are insane, insane. Yeah, I watched like a few like New York vloggers in my spare time, mainly one. But yeah, anytime she talks about renting and things like that, I'm always just baffled at the prices. Yeah, but yeah, I hope that was a little educational. I hope you learned a little bit about California's approach. It's good to see at least a significant increase, but it is also disappointing to see that like a 25% increase is still significantly below like a living wage. But I hope I at least gave you some talking points. If if someone tells you that increasing the minimum wage is going to make everything more expensive and like massive closures, it's a bit more complicated than that. Meg says, sorry, I'm just reading Princess and then Chandler's little convo, but Meg says, I don't understand how people can live in NYC. $4,000 to rent a closet sized apartment is not appealing to me. Yeah, no, I mean, I also question it. I will say that I used to live in London, and it was pretty expensive there. I shared with two people though, so it was more manageable until we got kicked out, and I had to move to basically a crack house. But that's a story for another day. Um, but yeah, and I will say that there were benefits. Obviously, it's not as extreme as New York City, but the big benefit for me was that that's where all the jobs were in the UK, was in London. And I imagine if you're in New York State, there's probably just like so much more opportunity in New York City than like, I don't know, Albany or whatever. Buffalo, that's in New York as well. Um, so yeah, I think there are good reasons why people move to these places, right? There is still super high demand, and it's trade offs, I guess. And says, let us all move to Armenia or Georgia, the only place where I can roleplay as an American, spending my money in Hungary. And I'm from Hungary. um, for instance, as I didn't think 4,000 US dollars mattered because most of them made 100. Yeah, that's what I thought when I was younger. I thought the Americans were balling big time. They were balling big time. I think the average wage in NYC is like household is like 60, 75 maybe. Average. Hang on. Where are we? NYC. NYC average household income. Okay, average household is 127,000. That's actually pretty high. Oh no, it's not. 79,000. That's in. I'm seeing different numbers. Median household income is 74,000. That was the number I was familiar with. Which is a household income in New York City, right? Is not that much when the rent is literally like $3,000-4,000, right? Yeah, I think when they say average, they're saying they mean median. Okay, median salary is 5.3K, 5.3 times 12. Okay, about $65,000, let's say. Oh yeah. So the median is yeah. No, the median's actually less. $65,000. Oh, that's kind of crazy for New York. Sometimes when people say average, they mean median. So this is a maths point, but a median is technically an average. Um, I know average usually means mean average of like normal average, but a median is also an average. A mode is also an average, but yeah, you guys are very right in this case. I am incorrect to say average. But yeah, good night, Smudge. Yeah, thanks for coming along. Nice to have you here. Take care. Get some good sleep, okay? Uh, Praise the sun. That's the figure for New York actually. So New York is unusually high. What's the U.S. median household income? Uh, I guess it's actually higher in the U.S. I guess if you grew up in California, right? California has 30 million people. Okay, 70,000 medium, about the same. About the same. 70 to 80 is the numbers I'm seeing. Uh, Reginaldo says, I'm just surprised how inequality rates are not sky high even with this. They're pretty high. They are pretty high. Um, yeah, I mean, let me see if we can get some. US inequality has gotten pretty crazy. There's a really good video from a few years back. I suggest watching if you want to see the scale of it. Where are we? We're here. This one, Wealth Inequality in America. It's 12 years old actually. Wow, which is, but it's pretty enlightening. They compare like what people think the distribution of wealth in the US is versus what it actually was back then. Highly recommend giving it a watch because people just assume that the US as well, and I guess in all countries, they assume that their country is a lot more equitable than it actually is. Highly recommend giving it a watch if you have a moment. Oh, compared with third world countries, level of high. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's obviously not as bad as third world countries, but America is also the wealthiest country in the world. So I think they should shoot a bit higher, personally. But yeah, it's getting worse. So give them enough time. I think they'll get close. Reginaldo, they'll get close. I love Sun's reaction in chat. So real. Yeah, it does baffle me how little of that wealth is used to make people's lives better. It's a real shame, to be honest. It's a real shame, and it's disappointing that people have been, I guess, convinced it's okay. As an outsider, it's yeah. I literally feel like I'm on crack or something when I watch people like so vehemently argue against their own interests. It's something else. It's definitely something. It's definitely something. But yeah, good night, Smaj. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It still does just baffle me that like people think Elon Musk cares about them. Baffles me. America has the best medical science but the worst medical system in the world, right? Sun says, do you think inequality is a natural phenomenon? I think it. I don't know. I think as a question, first of all, I think it doesn't really matter if it's a natural phenomenon. Lots of things are natural, like polio is natural. Humans are smart enough to overcome lots of natural forces. Like I definitely don't think it's inevitable, right? Maybe if that's what you're asking, I don't think it's like. Well, I don't think a level of inequality where the people at the bottom can't eat or house themselves is inevitable for sure. You might be able to argue that there's a little bit of inequality you can have, just inequality in terms of just natural ability, right? But definitely not what we've got now, where the setup is that people at the bottom can't eat or be housed or be healthy. Yeah, so I don't think it's inevitable for saying that, if that's what you mean, right? Hi Fad, I was impressed by your video 2 weeks ago. We need more easy to digest objective presentations available. Thank you. I try my best to make it easy to digest because that's the only way that I'll be able to understand it. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I try my best. I will say get your information from multiple places if you can. It's just good practice in general to do. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Appreciate the kind words, man. Yeah, Chandler. To be honest, like it's just the US is just kind of wild, man. Like MAGA is so different to anything else anywhere else. Like it's possible to have right wing policies or right wing parties that aren't cults, and most countries have that. But MAGA has just MAGA specifically has just gone off the deep end, and I think I'm interested in MAGA not because of the politics, but just because it reminds me of so many cults. I think I mentioned last time that I watched loads of Mormonism videos, and they just remind me so much of MAGA, which kind of feels like I'm just baiting, but they really do. Honestly, like the way people treated Joseph Smith is kind of similar to how much it reminds me of watching Trump speak. President says, I was hoping you talk about how much the US state subsidizes fast food. So I didn't actually look into the subsidy side of things. Basically, every I guess every industry gets subsidized like to crazy amounts. Retail as well, right? I mean, there's a whole argument of there's like a huge percentage of people who work at Walmart that have to be on food assistance programs, and so they're basically directly subsidizing Walmart's employees by feeding them, and Walmart should be paying them enough to be fed. Bob Michael. Yeah, so, well, Bob Michael, the title is mild clickbait. They technically increased the wage by 25%, but they increased it to a figure that was about triple the federal minimum wage. Once I edit the video, if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, the title kind of, it did happen. Alexander says, there's someone not from Canada. Do you think Pierre Poilievre is Canada's Trump? I don't think that's a good comparison, mainly because the main support for Pierre Poilievre is the fact that he's not Justin Trudeau. Because obviously, like, you know, I don't think Justin Trudeau has necessarily done a great job for the average Canadian. Like, house prices are some of the highest in the world. Food prices are insane. The supermarket cartel has so much power. But Poilievre's like support comes from him not being Justin Trudeau, like from him not being the guy in charge. And his support has actually been dropping loads. So if you're not Canadian, Poilievre is the like the right-leaning candidate who's basically the main opposition to Justin Trudeau's party, and he's historically basically tried to angle himself as being like friends with Trump, which has kind of backfired recently with all of the tariff stuff, right? Because Trump is now super unpopular in Canada, and because this guy has not really been willing to go up against Trump or say anything too negative, his poll numbers have totally crashed. His lead only really existed because he wasn't the guy in charge. So let me show you the 338 polls. You can actually see in real time. So the red line is Justin Trudeau's party. The red line is the current ruling party. Ruling party? That's not the word. But the current party in charge is the red line, right? And they've been getting super unpopular as cost of housing in Canada has gone crazy. Cost of food's going crazy. People are, you know, immigration is considered a big issue. And that's how the Conservative Party managed to get this massive boost. But in the wake of tariffs and in the wake of Justin Trudeau saying he's not going to run for re-election, things have basically completely switched because the party that's currently in charge have taken a real hard line against Donald Trump on tariffs, whereas the opposition are kind of too scared to say anything because a lot of their support, at least outside of the US, like a lot of the people who support them are quite closely affiliated with MAGA. And so they've kind of been flopping. The numbers are kind of crazy to see. Like you never see like poll numbers change like this in a matter of weeks. It's kind of wild. Yeah, I will say life is a lot nicer in Canada than I imagine it would be in the US. Yeah, I will say yeah, Canadian people are generally, I think they appreciate what they have that the US doesn't have. Obviously, there are still issues like the healthcare setup here is really underfunded, so it's really hard to get a doctor. But if you have an emergency, it'll get sorted super quickly and it'll be free. Okay, so your Chandler, I think it's because I have the link set up to like, yeah, I have the chat set up to try and autofilter potential spam, which might be why it's not showing up. I think it's trying to catch it as a spam. If I switch it to live chat, it shows up. But I have the hang on, let me go on live chat. I'll be able to see the messages that have been filtered. I'll switch that up next time so that more messages show up. Because yeah, I've got the auto filter turned on. Okay. Sun says, "What would you, if you were president of the US, what would you do to address inequality in the first 100 days?" I think the two biggest things you can do are increase the federal minimum wage and actually like push for Medicare for all, right? For like everyone in the US to have some form of healthcare. I think those are the two biggest things you can do, right? Pay people more and actually make sure that they can call an ambulance without worrying about the price. Yeah, honestly, I think those two things alone would do a lot. I mean, there's so much more you can do, right? What else is that you can do? The housing is the big one, but it's hard to make house building easier because of the setup of the US. It's all federalized, and every state has its own rules on housing and NIMBYs and all of that. But I do think that you could genuinely sort out the healthcare situation like pretty quickly if you wanted to, but vested interests and all of that. That's the only way to fix one of the inequalities, to make the ruling class impossible. Well, yeah, but I think that's a hard thing to do in 2025. It's going to be a hard sell. It's a hard sell. If you pay people more, don't you think that will drive the cost higher? I agree. I think housing is almost 40 to 80% of the cost. Food basics should be dirt cheap, and then people have more capital. So we actually talked a lot in the presentation about why paying people more doesn't necessarily like linearly lead to a cost increase. But basically, one part of it, if you want like a little summary, is that certain businesses have increased their costs way more than inflation, and they're, depending on what business it is. We were talking about fast food. Fast food is a kind of approaching the peak of what they can charge, and if they decide to start charging more, they'll stray into the territory of like sit down full service restaurants. So they can't really charge that much more, and so they have to absorb some degree of an increase in costs. That's one reason why increasing wages might not necessarily increase costs. But to explain it all again, I'd have to do the presentation again. But yeah, there are lots of countries. The example I will give you is there are lots of countries that have increased their minimum wages to much more palatable levels, and they haven't seen like an explosion in costs that's been predicted. I think the best thing to do when you have like a theory like that is to ask yourself like, what happens in other countries that have tried this? That's usually a good starting point, and it's one that I don't see mentioned often when Americans talk about things like this. I don't know if you're America soon. It's a Korean name, maybe. But yeah, there are countries that have increased minimum wages without necessarily seeing like a proportional increase in costs. But yeah, I think housing is the biggest one, right? Housing is what people spend most of their money on. And so if you can help that, you help everyone. As a wee president of Canada. Yeah, me and Pitbull on the ticket. I think if we were gonna run, I might let him have the president's spot. Entropy says United Healthcare has been introduced to new markets in several red states recently. It's odd how UHCs and shunned. I haven't actually looked into that. I didn't know that they were expanding, but they're a giant business, and a lot of people just don't know what insurance they have as well, right? If you have insurance through your employer, they'll probably go through whatever they think is best value for money. They're not going to be, standing up for your rights. And, a lot of people do have, most workers will have insurance through like an employer or something like that. Yeah. As Chandler says, like if housing prices go down, the big problem with like building enough housing to bring prices down is that so many people are invested in real estate and in the cost of housing going up and up and up that they present the big lobby against it, right? It's a problem not just in the US, it's in the UK as well. People who own houses don't want the cost of housing to go down. People who don't own houses do want the cost to go down. Except that people who own real estate tend to have a lot more power than the normies. Also, just for reference, in 1933, the top 4,000 families owned more wealth than the entire rest of the country. God. In that year, the start of the Great Depression, FDR was elected. In about a decade, the marginal income tax rate on the highest income bracket was over 90%. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. The American middle class was invented because of FDR's New Deal. Yeah, no, during FDR's leadership, the Yeah, the top tax rate, yeah, it was in the 90s, which is unfathomable today, isn't it? Praise the sun. Reminder that the largest landlord in the UK is the literal king. Yeah, the Crown Estate does own a lot of shit. Um, I was hoping that when the Queen died, we might have a talk about getting rid of it, rid of the monarchy, but apparently not. He's even on the money here in Canada, actually. Still, King Charles is on the coins here as well, and the Queen, which is it's kind of a little bit awkward for me when uh when I take out the coins and it's like the king on it. Chandler, do you know about the business plot 1933? I know vaguely about it. Right, they tried to like overthrow the president. Right, wasn't it? That was what was going on there. They were going to like put in like a business leader, but I don't know the details. I do know that there's a plot to overthrow. I guess FDR would have been right. The Royal Barons literally attempted to orchestrate a fascist coup in 1933-35 as a direct result of the New Deal. God, that's kind of wild. I'll tell you what, I am going to add that to the list of things I need to look into. I need a proper breakdown because, as I say, my American history knowledge is shoddy best. Somebody made a video, I believe, that people like Zuckerberg and Bezos price gouging real estate prices, same shit in every country than the oligarch. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, praise the sun. Yeah, spot on. Right, like the countries with the worst housing markets at the moment are Australia and Canada. I think Hong Kong as well. Taiwan is also really high. I know Taiwan is really high. Hong Kong is up there, but nowhere near. I think the others. Uh, yeah. Since says housing is a tough one, I think we should cap uh, foreign investors at one property with higher taxes on additional homes. Progressive taxes could on additional properties could work for locals as well. Yeah, I think they said they were going to try that in the UK of like increasing basically property taxes on second homes, but you do need to actually build houses, right? That's the part that no one ever does. Like nobody wants to actually just build houses in the places where people want to live, because I just feel like, yeah, we're just not building houses. That's really like that's a way that you can actually get growth out of housing policy, because increasing taxation is like it's all good, right? Like it helps, but if there aren't enough houses, then like what's the benefit? Or if there aren't enough houses in the places people want to live, and you can also stimulate the construction industry at the same time, let's go for it. Oh yeah, yeah. Powell memorandum as well is an interesting read. I'm familiar with that, right? It's like the list of things the US has to do before military action. Yeah, true. They don't want to dilute the market. Yeah, exactly right. Like, because I mean, the president is a real estate mogul. He's probably not going to do anything to affect his own interests. But yeah, gang, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We went for about 2.5 hours. So it was a decent little run. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna learn a bit more about the business plot. Actually, might do that tomorrow morning. Um, but in the meantime, it was a pleasure. And Chandler, I'll turn it to live chat next time, okay? And then your comments should show up. I've got live chat on my computer, so I can see all of your comments as well, even if they're not showing up on screen. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who came along. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And oh yeah, I'm part-time at work now from this week, so we'll see how things change. Maybe I might stream a bit more often. Might just make the videos better, but that's a question for future me. In the meantime, thank you once again for coming. Get a good night's sleep if you haven't already. Stay hydrated. And I hope you learned a little bit today. This is always the best part of my week, and I'm always thrilled to be here. And yeah, thanks for the dono as well, Praise the Sun. Appreciate it. Have a good night, gang. Okay, take care. Bye. Peace.